So this is the neighbourhood in which you can find our school. We live, Emmanuel Christian School is in Littlemore, and if you go round the ring road before you get to Sainsbury's and you turn off on the roundabout before, that's where you find us. So we're turning off the roundabout and we're going to take a trip down Oxford Road. So here we are at the top of Oxford Road, and then we can keep working our way down. And at the end of the road you can see the peaks of the roof of Emmanuel Christian School. Emmanuel Christian School is on Sandford Road because Littlemore leads to Sandford-on-Thames. Halfway down Oxford Road you can see somewhere called Ovenden Court, and this is named after Mr. Ovenden and his sons, who used to have a forge here. The next building on Oxford Road at the corner is Blewett Court. This is named after Joe Blewett, a previous mayor of Oxford. Before it was a block of flats, it was a pub, and this sign here is a clue. Littlemore is full of contrasts. On the left-hand side you can see some new buildings, but before they were here there was a huge laundry with a massive chimney. The laundry served many of the Oxford colleges, washing their linen for them. On the right-hand side you can see the old stone of Newman's College. Newman's College is where John Henry Newman came for quiet reflection after he stopped being the minister of the local church. You can see his study, his bedroom, and the chapel he had for reflection. It was in this place that he was received into the Roman Catholic Church by Dominic Barbary, and the church opposite Newman's College is named after Dominic Barbary. While John Henry Newman was vicar of the local church, he bought the land on which our school is built. He bought it in 1838 for only £25. I think John Henry Newman also liked trees because he planted quite a lot in Littlemore, and these oak trees which are around our site were planted by him. Behind the slide you can see the tower of St Mary and St Nicholas Church. Now originally, if you lived in Littlemore, you had to go 3 miles down the road to the University Church in town. And eventually someone called John Henry Newman persuaded his college to let him build a church here. And so that's the church he built. But he also believed that faith and learning should never be split apart, and he had a real desire that children in Littlemore should learn. And so he bought this land for a total of £25, and this school building over here was built by him. This coach house eventually became part of the school too, and eventually the school grew and expanded all the way up through Lawn Upton Close up to where the manor house is up there. And then in the 1990s Oxfordshire County Council got rid of middle schools and changed the way that schools were, and so some of this land was sold off, and this land where the lodges and the main school building is was bought for Emmanuel Christian School to use by a local trust. As well as being passionate that learning could be accessible to all the children who live within the area, Newman was also really passionate that a Christian faith could be heard by everyone in the area. And these pews, which he designed for the church, are an expression of that. They look very ordinary, but they've got something missing that pews in Newman's day had, and those are locks, because it was common in those days to have pews that could be locked so that rich people could reserve their seats in the important parts of the churches, and poor people would have to stand at the back. And Newman hated that idea because he believed the Christian faith was for everyone to hear and understand. And so he built these pews without locks in to say that anyone could hear this good news anywhere. Littlemore didn't have very many people living in it. It actually had a few farms, and this farm here is called Corpus Christi Farmhouse. Eventually Littlemore needed more than one primary school, and so this became Speedwell Infant School. Again, it's now flats, but you can see a sign for the old school outside one of the doors. There's a quote at the bottom saying, "Feed my lambs." Until the 1960s, Littlemore had a stop on the railway line as well. You can see the office still there. So we're now continuing down Sandford Road, down towards Sandford-on-Thames. And we're coming up to another of Littlemore's landmarks. This area is called St George's Park, and in St George's Park used to be Littlemore's mental hospital. The buildings now are flats and houses, and at the entrance you can see the house where the guard lived, because this was not a hospital that you could go in and out of. The patients were kept inside here, and they had jobs and work that they did. This is of BOAT, Berkshire, Buckingham, Oxfordshire Wildlife Trusts, and if you look around here, they're offices of this lovely old house. This was the house that the superintendent of the hospital lived in, and the last superintendent of the hospital before it was opened up to being an open hospital was somebody called Mandelbrot. And if you go inside St George's Park, you'll find Mandelbrot Drive, which is named after him. Mandelbrot also had a deputy, and his deputy was called Dr. Armstrong, and that's why this road just around the corner here that we're going to come to is called Armstrong Road. There's the side of the offices where the superintendent used to live, and you can see behind it a chapel that was part of the hospital. That's now offices as well today. One side of this sign you're in Oxford, and one side of it you're out. Littlemore's mainly inside the Oxford boundary, and a little bit just going this way is outside. This is the A4074 down to Henley, which is a busy road, but you can see that it has a turn-off to Littlemore and Sandford. In fact, later on the brown sign that you can see one of our other famous landmarks, the Kassam Stadium. Just past the bridge is Hayford Hill Lane. Some people think that Hayford was a crossing point in the river for people to take hay over. If you go right down in the end of this lane, you eventually reach Rose Island, which is an inhabited island in the middle of the river, which is part of Littlemore. Now we're coming out of Littlemore into Sandford-on-Thames, but Littlemore does stretch behind as well. A few years ago, Magdalen College built the Oxford Science Park, and if you keep going along here and looking to your left, you can see the Science Park. There we go, just between the trees, you can see the Science Park. The Science Park is on Grenoble Road, and that's named after the town in France that Oxford is twinned with. So there you go, that's quite a whistle-stop tour of Littlemore, really. And there are lots of things that I didn't put into the tour, so if you live in Littlemore, I'm sure you can find some other treasures. I often find road names are an interesting place to start when I'm trying to find out about a place. It sometimes tells me about some of the famous people who've lived there, but also special people who've made a difference in the place where they live.